Well, good afternoon, my friends. It's a pleasure to be here with you for this week's devotional. I'm here at the intersection of 1604 and Bandera, and as you can tell behind me, it is a little bit of confusion here. I would say there's a little bit of chaos going on. There's a stop sign now at the turnaround. There's 2 or 3 different roadway systems that weren't there. It's a little bit of chaos going on right now. And indeed, while I was setting up, I saw cars stopping in the middle of the intersection and all kinds of crazy things. If I were to go and ask people right now, what do you think about this new roadway system? They would probably say, it just doesn't make any sense. And indeed, that's reflective of the Christian life as well. There are times in your life where you're going to look up to the Lord and say, Lord, this doesn't make any sense. And that was the title of my message yesterday, where we looked at the book of Acts chapter 9, verses 10 to 19, where God calls Ananias and says, Ananias, I want you to go down Straight Street, and I want you to find a man there. His name is Saul of Tarsus, and I want you to heal him. And Ananias knows this name. He says, Lord, I know this guy. This guy has been persecuting our brothers and sisters. This man is an enemy of the church. Indeed, he killed Christians, and he was there giving approval for Stephen's martyrdom. And the Lord says, go. I've got plans for this man. Indeed, I will show him how much he will suffer for my name. So Ananias didn't have the full picture when he got these instructions, but the Lord had indeed great plans for Paul. And of course, we know the story. And the message is this: there are times in your life where God's going to lead you down certain paths. He's going to instruct you to do certain things and say, Lord, this doesn't make any sense. And so I gave 3 objectives for the Christian life on what to do when God doesn't make any sense. The first thing is, do it anyway. When the Lord calls you, trust Him. Know that God will never forsake you. He's never failed in His promises. He's never failed in His instructions. So when God calls you, do it anyway. We looked at several examples in the Bible. One of them was Jonah's call to Nineveh. It didn't make any sense to Jonah to go to Nineveh, the enemy of Israel, but the Lord had plans for Nineveh. And then the second advice that I gave for what to do when things don't make sense is to remember. Remember who your God is. Remember what He's done for you. Remember His promises. He's never, ever failed in His promises to you. So remember the covenant promises you hold. Remember that God has never failed you. So we looked at several examples there. And one of them was, of course, King David. Remember, King David was anointed to be the king of Israel. But yet, after he was anointed, he didn't go into the palace and sit on a throne. In fact, he spent the next 6 years out running around in the wilderness, hiding in caves, because King Saul was after his life, after he had heard that King David was now the new king. Now, when we read Psalms, we can see some of this torment that David felt, saying, Lord, you don't make any sense. I don't get this. But yet it was out there in the wilderness, so 6 years, where David learned how to become a king. It was in those 6 years that he learned how to lead people. And also, just as important, he learned the landscape of the land. He knew every nook and crevice. He knew every valley. He knew where every cave was, so that when he did become king, he would be able to effectively beat the Philistines, because he knew the terrain of the land. And how did he learn it? But those 6 years in the wilderness. God was preparing for him. So the third thing I shared in the Christian life when God doesn't make any sense is to always have eyes and ears to see with faith. In other words, don't see it with human eyes. When God says something, do something. When He presents circumstances in your life, don't try to examine it with human perspective. See it through God's perspective, with eyes and ears of faith. So remember this. Remember that the Lord is going to call you and challenge you in your life, but trust Him. And one of the examples that I gave was in Abraham. Imagine God saying, take your son, your only son, whom you love, and go and sacrifice him. Yet we find that in Abraham, he didn't question it. He did it. And why so? Because he knew who his God was. He knew that the covenant promise was given to him, and he knew that it would come by way of his son, Isaac. And so he trusted in the Lord, and indeed, it turned out okay. Here's the point, and here's the message. When God doesn't make sense in your life, trust Him anyway. Remember who He is, and have eyes and ears of faith that no matter what you hear, no matter what you see, no matter what you experience, God is with you. So I hope that this message is encouraging to you, and it reminds you that no matter what circumstances you may encounter into your life, no matter how crazy it may seem, God is with you and He will never fail you. May God bless you, and until next time, God bless.